What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the channel. If you're new here or just stumbled upon this video, my name is Jared. I am the owner of CNA Music Supply. We are over in Hammond, Louisiana, and if you like what you see, follow us, subscribe to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. Trying to build up the followers. We're getting some. I started out with 1, now I got 20. It's all positive, it's good, I'll take it. I definitely see you all watching the videos, so I see a lot of people watching the videos, so instead of just watching, subscribe to the channel and stay up to date with videos we're doing. I'm going to have a lot more videos coming out in the future of different things. I'm trying to make it a point to do more videos on records and inventory, our gear we have, guitars we have coming in. We have a lot of stuff coming in soon, and Christmas is coming soon, so it's going to be a lot of new things coming in. But on this video, I wanted to do something kind of cool. I hear a lot of people talking about if they could name like their top 5 albums of all time, what would it be? Their influences, things like that. So I wanted to do just a little video of, this isn't necessarily my top 5 all time, like no matter what, set in stone albums, but I think this is like probably my 5 best albums, or maybe even my top 5 albums that have probably changed my life in some way, or were so, they made such an impact to me that I just constantly listen to them. And it's really funny because some of these albums are they have their time on them. They've been out for a very long time. And I still, to this day, will probably pretty much put it on and listen to it from front to back. Those are the albums I'm talking about. And it would be really cool to see, what albums you guys have like that. If you have something in your collection where you're like, hey, this is something like that. I listen to it constantly, or I remember it, and share in the comments, let us know. Give me some feedback. I'd definitely appreciate it. It's one of those things where, music is all around you. And if you don't even think about it, it kind of is. You're just riding in your car, music is on. You're at a restaurant, music is on. You're at a store, they got music on. It's always in the background. So it's a really big part of our lives, really in our everyday life. If you just stop to listen and notice how much music is really always around us. And it's so crazy on how, an album or a song can remind us of something or someone or a time, a moment in our time in our life that is, it just brings back memories. It's almost like time traveling, and it's the coolest thing in the world. So I'm going to kick this off with my number 1 album that it really does mean a lot to me. It really did change my life pretty drastically on getting my birth into rock and roll, and just it just sparked something in me as a young kid. And I want to say I probably heard this, I probably actually started listening to this when I was maybe 8 or 9 when I first heard it. And let's see, that's probably about right. I probably would have been about 8 or 9. Yeah, that's about right. So for me, it is going to be Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. I know probably everybody out there is like, oh, that's definitely going to be on my list, no doubt. This, for me, has got to be easily a top 5 of greatest albums of all time. I don't think there's a lot of bad stuff you can say about this album. This album literally changed music forever. When this album came out, honestly, when it came out, it was a flop. Nobody really knew what to do with it. It didn't get a lot of airplay or radio play. I want to say, I think it was "Welcome to the Jungle," which I believe was the single off of this, their first single, and it didn't get much traction. I think at the time when it came out, it was getting thrown in the middle of a bunch of other stuff. Some critics called the album horrible. Some critics saw it for what it was and said it was an absolute masterpiece, and it was going to change the face of music forever, which those critics were definitely right. But the only way that this album got traction is when they released Sweet Child of Mine, and then it obviously got radio play, And then it took off like wildfire, and the album just blew up, and everybody realized that this is actually an absolutely incredible album. And it really is. Every song on this album is a banger. There is not one song on here that is bad. It is an album that I put on constantly. I will listen to it from front to back with no problems and enjoy it every single time. It's just an album that made such an impact on my life. And I'm pretty sure it was probably, I want to say this came out, I think it was 87. And so I was born in 81, so I was probably about, I want to say I probably first heard it maybe in about 88 or 89. I think when Sweet Child of Mine came out on the radio, and that's when I actually heard it, was because of Sweet Child of Mine. And then I ended up getting it, I think on cassette, I want to say it was. And you know, it's just an incredible album. I mean, it's just, there's not a whole lot you can say about it except for it's absolutely fantastic. If you've never heard this, go listen to it. If you don't have it, go get it. So there's no doubt about it. You have to have this in your collection no matter what. The second album, I would say, that was definitely a game changer for me. And I definitely remember when this came out. This came out in 1991. I remember my friend's older brother got a copy of it. He was probably about, I want to say he might have been about 14 or 15, and I was 10 when I first heard it, and or actually just about to turn 10 in a few months. And it blew me away. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's a sellout album, and you probably already know which one it is by me giving the date and the fact that it was a sellout album. All you metalheads from the 80s are definitely going to say it was a sellout album. But for somebody like me who was only 10 years old, who got a first taste of it, the Black Album has got to be the greatest album of all time, easily. My favorite album, I mean, along with, hell, tons of other favorites. But this one is, it's a sentimental album for me. I've never heard anything better in my life until I really listened to the Black Album. It was just, it brings back so many memories. I remember being in that bedroom as a kid, hanging out with my friends, and my friend's older brother comes in and he has it on cassette, and it just wasn't on cassette, it was in like the big long box cassettes, if you remember those. They used to put cassettes on some of them in these big these big boxes that were just really cool looking. And I remember he busted it out and started playing. And the cool thing about that one is that one actually had the track So What on it at the very end, which was kind of a cool thing, because they took that off for some reason. The original versions had like So What on it, and that was a cool thing to have. And I don't know why I think it was like the hidden track or whatever. But anyway, yeah, Metallica's Black Album. You can never go wrong with Metallica's Black Album. I know there's so many guys out there right now. If you're watching this video and you're an old metalhead from the 80s, man, I am so sorry. I know it's a sellout album to you. I know it's one of those things where you lost Metallica and they just weren't heavy anymore. I totally get it, because from Kill 'Em All to Master of Puppets, heavy as hell. Heavy. One of my other favorites is Injustice for All. I love that album. So I know where you guys are coming from when you're like, man, that was such a weak rock album. They should have never did it. They totally sold out. Trust me, I understand. I get it. But for guys like me who fell in that age of where we were still, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old back in 1991, and this is the first experience we had, this is really what we love for sure, because it's what we know. I mean, not a lot of us probably really heard the heavy stuff until we heard this, and then we went to the back catalog and then found, oh yeah, they got different stuff. And it was incredible finding all of that stuff, because once you found this album, you realized all the stuff from the 3 previous albums were just all gold, and it was absolutely incredible. This is one of those albums that had me really wanting to play guitar. I mean, listening to Enter Sandman, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, who doesn't want to learn Enter Sandman? That's just absolutely incredible. So this would be my number 2 pick for sure. Just an incredible album. My number 3 pick, it's going to really be your typical album that I think a lot of people are always going to have in their stash. it was a game changer for everybody. It was a game changer for music in general. It literally changed music absolutely completely, and it even had the greats like Clapton and you know, Paul McCartney and all them looking at this guy and going, who in the hell is that? And it's going to obviously be the greatest of all time, 100%, no doubt, can't deny it. The dude was from out of this world, Jimi Hendrix. The Jimi Hendrix Experience, Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? You gotta have this album. This album blew my mind when I first heard it. I've never heard anything, these sounds that were coming out of my headphones, and I wasn't playing this on CD or nothing. I was dropping the needle on these things and getting the actual sound from the record and from the vinyl, and it blew my mind. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The sounds from the left and the right, and then the way even at times they were blended together, and it just gave these sound waves going through were absolutely phenomenal. And it's so amazing to me. It is so amazing to me that even this day, I will have kids come in here who were like 12 and 14 and 15, and they will grab this album, only knowing very little about it. They will look at, oh yeah, I kind of know about Hendrix and all of that, but they will grab this album, and it will be one of their first albums to put in their record collection. It makes me absolutely so happy to see that happening, that this younger and younger and younger generation is coming through, and they're picking up stuff like Hendrix, they're picking up stuff like Zeppelin, they're picking up stuff like Bowie and Floyd and Queen, and it's like, man, this is absolutely incredible. If the you know, the whole vinyl resurgence is hard right now, the music resurgence is coming through, and it's happening, and I've been telling people this for years, and everybody's been thinking I'm out of my mind, but it's here, it's on its way, it's coming, and it's about to get bigger and better. And all of these young kids who are walking through this door, and they're buying their first guitar, and they're buying their first record, and they're learning about all of this, these are going to be the new Hendrixes and John and Pauls and the new Plant and Page, and it's absolutely incredible to see. I am so excited to see these things happen every day, and this is an album that you have to get to add to your collection if you don't have it. And if you are still learning about Hendrix and getting into Hendrix, you've got to add the debut. Absolutely phenomenal. You can never go wrong with Hendrix, no matter what it is. The next album I'm going to pick from is going to be a 90s banger for me. It was a double album, probably the greatest double album of all time. And I listened to this thing back and forth. I listened to it constantly from beginning to end. I remember when I first got it, and this is going to be Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy. To me is, I don't even have enough words for it. This album is like pure perfection. This is probably, I know a lot of people, like, I know Frampton holds a title for best greatest double album or whatever for Frampton Comes Alive and stuff like that. That might be holding the title for a double live album. I'm not sure. But anyway, this is, I mean, I don't know how much you can say about this. If you don't know this album, you got to get this album. This is one of the greatest double albums ever made. It is absolutely pure perfection. I remember when I bought this album, or say bought, I remember when I got it sent to me from, to tell you how old I am here, from BMG. If you remember BMG Records, you know, we all signed up for a penny, and then we basically paid $14.99 and got like 20 CDs. And I actually got this on cassette. I got a bunch of cassettes sent to me from BMG, and I got this and Soundgarden and STP and Pearl Jam, and that was a big old grunge collection. And absolutely fantastic music. The greatest day in the world was coming home from school and seeing that cardboard box sitting there on the table, and you knew it was loaded with music that was just going to blow your mind. And that's exactly what happened. Is I would go in my bedroom, and man, I'm not shitting. I'd go in my bedroom and I would stay in there for the entire weekend, and I would literally play all of the cassettes that I pulled out of that box. And I mean, they would ship you like 12 and 14 of them. So I mean, you're talking about in the 90s, man, I was getting sent, Soundgarden and Stone Temple Pilots and Smashing Pumpkins and Sublime, and everything from the 90s you could possibly imagine. Alanis Morissette's album, and it just keeps on going on and on. I'd get Led Zeppelin coming in, and I was just getting myself just completely into all this music and into all these bands, and it was the greatest thing as being a kid, man. It opened me up so much, and those were some of the happiest moments of my life, were walking into the house and seeing that BMG box. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can definitely, can also agree on that. I'm sure it was the same way for you all, especially as growing up in the 90s, as growing up in that grunge alternative era where the music was just absolutely phenomenal. So this is an album you definitely need to get familiar with, the Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy. There is not one bad thing I can say about this album. It is just one of the most incredible albums ever. If you don't have it, get it, and you can snag these from us. You can get them online at cnamusicsupply.com. We have them in stock. We can ship them out to you. Everything's good with that. So if you're looking for these albums or other ones that we have in stock, let us know. And my last album that I will pinpoint on, this album for me 100% was a life-changing album, and I don't just say that lightly as saying, oh, these changed my life. They did. They changed my life in some sort of a way of getting impressed with the sound or learning to play guitar, and then they influenced me to want to play. This album literally changed my life 100%, as far as literally changing my life. I opened up this music store. I went in business for myself, and I opened up this music store because of this album, because listening to it put me in such a different mind frame that it changed my mindset. And it's going to be the Grateful Dead's American Beauty. I don't really know what to say about this album. This album, for some reason, touched me in a way that I've never been touched before listening to an album. I think it was the fact of that everything on this album fell in together perfectly. The lyrics, the music, the art of the whole thing, especially listening to Box of Rain, which Phil wrote about his dad who was dying of cancer. That was kind of an interesting song to listen to. Definitely listening to Ripple. Just so many of these songs on here that, they really, the thing about the Dead is they basically get to the point of how, life is to be living, live life. And stop worrying about all the other stuff. Live life and just try to do the best you can. Enjoy the time you have, and be happy. And that was the biggest thing with this album, is listening to it. It just completely put me in just a completely different frame of mind. I was, we were going through lockdown at the time, the pandemic and COVID and everything was happening. I just opened the business as far as selling out of my garage on the internet. And I was a mechanic for many, many, many years. And I was like, man, I want to do something else. I really want to do something that I love doing mechanic work, but I wanted to do something that wasn't so backbreaking, and I absolutely loved it. And I wanted to give something back to the community and then spread some kind of, love or art back through the community. As far as I remember when I used to go to the music store when I was a kid, and as much as an impact that made on my life, I want to try to make that impact on others, especially other young kids who don't have an outlet and they don't have, a way to express themselves, and they're just getting into this. So this was an album for me that made me pull the trigger on that and say, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to have to find a way to try to do it, and at least let me try it and then see what can happen. And to be honest, I will tell you, opening a business and opening a music store is not necessarily the most, it's not going to necessarily make you a rich man at all. But I think for me, it's the joy of seeing people coming in and then wanting to learn to play, or they're getting into music, or they're just getting into art. And that alone means the world to me, because if somebody can spread on that joy and keep it going, then I've done what I had to do. And that's where I love it. You know, that's really what pays off for me. And that's what I keep in mind for sure. So this album, when I say it was a life changer for me, it was 100% a life changer for me. It persuaded me to do the things that I wanted to do and to move forward with my dreams. And so I have to give credit to the Grateful Dead's American Beauty, 100% on that. So for me, that's my 5 picks of 5 albums that have definitely influenced me throughout my lifetime.